And if you missed part 1, just as a refresher, on the LovePod this week and every week of this season of Love is Blind, I have season 6's Jeramey and Vince joining me to talk about their experience and their season in Charlotte, and then what it's like actually watching the show now that they've participated in it a year or two later. And the first part of the episode was more about comparing the experiences. This part 2, is more about season 7 couples and what we think of them and the reveals. So if you haven't checked out part 1, you're going to want to do that now.
About kind of my success rate gauge, and I'm terrible at this, but how likely it is that these couples will end up married. So for Monica and Steven, I gave a 50-50. What do you guys think?
Why'd you give them 50-50?
Because I feel like she kind of got, and this is another side combo, but the ick when he was talking about when they were chatting on the honeymoon or the pre-honeymoon, and he would not stop talking, according to her. And so I really like their initial connection, but now I feel like, again, stepping out into the real world, it's going to be very different.
So I got that ick part. My theory is that's kind of the most that they have on them, and they're trying to stir in that sense of doubt, because I thought they actually seemed pretty genuine together. But I could be so my theory is, like, anytime that something seems like forced drama, or they like try to play something up more than it is, it's to give that couple doubt when later on they end up actually being, perfectly fine together. Kind of like the contraception talk between Johnny and Amy.
Oh yeah, that was so played up.
Like that was so blown out of proportion.
Really focus on, blow it up. It gives you doubt in them, but all along they're making it to the end.
Emma says it's a Jeramey Laura situation. She doesn't like him. I don't know that she doesn't like him. I don't think she would have gotten engaged if she didn't like him.
Did she talk about his jokes and Hawaiian shirts or something?
She did, actually. He's only worn Hawaiian shirts this entire time. Jeramey, what do you think the odds are of saying I do?
Not great.
Well, don't you?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Okay. You didn't get the manual?
No, I don't know anything that's going on. But I don't think so, and it's only because, like, similar to my situation, to where, like, I didn't act different out of the pods than I did in the pods. I was very energetic. I was very, like, bubbly kind of myself. And it was, I can see where Steven is coming from, to where, like, for me, if I were to go out on a date now, I would do things very differently, because I've learned a lot more about myself. But then I'm just meeting somebody in person that I've been talking to for 10 days that I'm now engaged to. I'm in a different country with them. I'm thinking that I need to fill the space and create conversation and keep things moving, because we were having a great time when we were not seeing each other. So at that point, you're talking too much. You're really excited, but it's coming across to be a lot for somebody. And I think if she is struggling with that with him and making comments about the fact that he talks too much, it's already not going to work out. Like, I can relate to him in that sense, to where, like, you got to fill the space. You want to make sure that that connection's still there and that conversation's still going. Now, does she not like him? Like in my situation where this person just didn't like me? I don't know. But, well, that'll be left to be determined.
It did come off a little bitchy, but yeah, yours I felt was, like, pretty overt. I was like,
yeah,
kind of like when
there was no hiding mine. And like,
she's not.
No,
like
she was mean to you, and I love Laura, but she was mean to you.
I look back on it now, because I'm the one who like lived in Hawaii. I have my Hawaiian shirt collection, and he got all this Hawaiian shirt attention. I was jealous. I would have been, I would have been in seventh heaven with someone like that.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like we're talking about Laura being mean to me and stuff. Like, I look at it now as, like, it's kind of funny at this point, because it's been so long since all of this really happened. Like, I get that the show came out in February, but we had filmed the previous year before that. It's coming up on 2 years now. I don't hold any hard feelings. I don't hold any animosity towards anybody at this point. It is funny looking back on it now and be like, bro, how did you not see this? You were there dealing with it. What were you not seeing here?
Because Jeramey's like the nicest guy in the world. I'm being 100% serious. Jeramey is extremely nice. So, like, you got to believe people are going out of their way to be hard on him.
And I've said it privately. I don't think I've said it publicly, but like when you look at who's come on the Love Pod, right? Like who's participated in the rescue walks and the trivia competition, you guys are there. There's people who could definitely participate that are not there. I'm not like calling anybody specific out.
No,
but there have been people.
If you want to be nice about things, if you want to, flaunt that style, show up for some fucking animals. Show up for some people. You don't have to have the nicest language all the time, but do something good with your platform.
I will say this: there's some people who rub me the wrong way because when the show came out, I did a lot of we'll call pro bono work, to help people out, review contracts, assist with stuff. And then when the pet rescue launched, and I was like, can you just do like a 10-second spot? Like the people who really were just like, no, I don't have time for that. I was like, okay, noted. Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, it really hurts personally. And I know I shouldn't take it personally, but like somebody asked, and it was probably their manager, so they don't know directly like that this conversation even happened, but they asked how much the pay was to do an appearance. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm putting this all together for free. And this has become like a full-time job. I can't pay you to show up and compete in trivia for a charity. That would take any of the funds that we got and completely, what's the point of doing it at that time? So again, I believe it was their manager, but still like,
probably still, they need to kind of choke up and do it. But yeah, no, there's some great people from the show. Jeramey's again one of the nicest people, and I could make a list, and it would be a huge, huge list. Like Chris Fox, Jeramey, just super nice guy. Julie,
who got roasted by Jeramey at the trivia competition.
Come on, man.
Chris, what's it like to wake up every morning to pretend to be a good person? That was probably one of the meanest things I've ever said to somebody.
And his response to it was like the nicest person thing. He's like almost like, oh yeah,
he made me feel bad. Like we were supposed to be roasting each other. He made me feel bad about what I said.
Oh, that's my fault because I knew my mom was going to end up judging if there was a tiebreaker, and I know how she is. So that kind of, I didn't intentionally set it up that way.
They were too mean.
I
love my
before
mom.
I said it, I was like, how mean do you want me to be? And you guys were like, go for it. And I was like, all right, Chris, what's it like to pretend to be a nice person when you wake up?
And if I were, I couldn't be the judge, right? It wouldn't be fair for me to be the judge.
Yeah.
But there were some no-shows who were supposed to be helping out. So we kind of had to improvise there. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's under our YouTube channel. So you can check out Jeramey roasting Chris, as well as another hour of 20 plus Love is Blind cast members getting together. But it was great. Moving on, the next couple, Hannah and Nick. Now I have their odds of saying I do as 10%. I sure as hell hope not. They're just not a match. I think Emma, somebody said like she's just not attracted to him. I think they are just, she's more uptight than he is. He's very fun-loving and easygoing. So I do hope like this is one of the couples I'm like, please don't get married. I even was like, please send her home. Like she's not ready to be married.
Who does that sound like?
Anyway, Vince, what do you think their odds are of getting married?
I don't know. There was kind of like another kind of couple that reminded me of from my season, like the splitting, getting back together, and I don't know. There seemed like almost a little level of toxicity in that situation, and I don't think that was manufactured. So I think their odds are less than 1%.
Jeramey?
I completely agree. They're not going to make that. There's already like spite in like the looks that they're giving each other. Maybe not so much Nick, but definitely from Hannah. And it's weird because if you go to get married, two people have to agree to do that. So I don't see. It's weird how that works here, or at least in the United States, that's how it works. Maybe some places it's different, but
Oh, I'm sure it is.
I don't see that one working out.
She kind of reminded me of Zach's ex from, was that season 4?
Oh, Arena.
Is that Zach?
Yeah,
Whatever,
the one that broke up on the honeymoon, and then he ended up getting with Bliss.
Yeah. Reminded me of her.
And they have a baby now.
Yeah.
She's so Hannah, I'm talking about, not Bliss, is so easily influenced. The girls made some comments about Nick. She broke up with Nick. Then you see her with Leo, and it feels like he was just about to convince her that maybe she should dump Nick again. And thankfully, she has a change of heart, but maybe not, because I really don't think that they're great together. And he's so fun-loving and free-spirited, and she is maybe not. That list, what would you do if you found a list, or it felt like maybe intentionally left out, of 10 things I hate about you, which was the episode title too, Vince?
That is just gotta be, I'm not staged, but come on.
I guarantee you a producer put that out.
Oh yeah, intentionally.
You think?
It's like,
Oh yeah.
right in front of them.
Jeramey, do you pack it up and go home if that's what happens, if you find that?
Yeah. It's not even a question. It's like, hey, like, it's literally me just like doing one of these, pulling it out and being like, cool, good to know how you feel. And, it was fun. And then just, you're done.
The weirdest one to me is that she called him delusional. And I don't know if we're missing some context, but I have not seen a single thing that Nick has done that was any level of delusion. And
I can tell you that.
Okay, go for
so
it.
him being delusional. I mean, he's compared himself to Henry Cavill. He's compared himself to Travis Kelce. Like he's being this like big masculine jock. Now I don't know if it's just me. He doesn't seem like a very big guy. He seems to have this grandiose like image of himself that's just maybe not reality. So I can understand where she's coming from. She's delusional on that.
Okay. Yes. Fair enough.
More to I'm not gonna remember the guy's name. Parks and Rec.
I know who you're talking about.
Who's Fonzie's son on Parks and Rec?
I don't know. If anybody knows in the chat, I know exactly who you're talking about. He ends up getting engaged to Leslie, right?
Henry Winkler's character, their son.
Adam Scott? No.
I'm not gonna get it.
Okay. That's right. He reminds me of my brother-in-law, but nobody knows who that is, so that's irrelevant. Moving on to Ashley and Tyler. I have their odds of getting engaged prior to finding out some of the things that are coming out now of 70%, but a lot of people do not like them together. So, Jeramey, what do you think the odds of them saying I do are?
I mean, we have to look at the allegations as a totally separate thing, because that's not really happening on the show right now. That is in our world. Right. So if I'm going based off the show, I would consider it pretty high. I would say that 75% is still pretty good, because the thing with this, and again, going through personal experience with this one, is the way I can imagine that conversation going with him is maybe he does bring it up to her, maybe he doesn't. Who knows at this point? But maybe he brings it up to her, and it could be a pretty sour subject. But they're not dealing with outside influence yet. They're dealing with a conversation between the two of them where they can handle that, and they just figure it out from there. And you have a much higher likelihood of figuring it out versus having the whole world telling you how big of a piece of work you are and all of that, and then that also getting into your partner's head and it just making it worse. I would still say it's pretty high right now.
What about you, Vince?
I thought they were one of the more genuine couples, right?
I do too.
I thought there was a lot of honesty, and they just seemed very sweet together. The person I was thinking of was John Ralphio, by the way.
No, really?
Okay.
Don't be suspicious, guy. Okay.
Him? Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
I don't know how this is going to play out in real life, but I said this just means I need to go to therapy more. The three people who I really zoned in on were Tyler Bowden and Marissa as like my favorites initially. And then I've heard some rumors about things coming out. And so, maybe I just need to keep working on myself because maybe I'm just attracted to red flags. But I really do feel like
the whole kids thing, you mean?
The kids thing and some other, and I don't remember specifically, so I don't want to comment on like things that I'm unsure of, but I feel like there were some other things, maybe money related, that he owes a lot of money to people. And again, I don't deep dive into this too much. This is a hobby for me, but that raised some concerns about my ability to judge character.
I will say when I did that breakdown of like what I thought everybody's going to be like prior to the season, I really am happy that I put extra emphasis on Leo being an art dealer, because that has been one of the biggest subjects. I'm like, man, I really knew him being an art dealer was going to be a thing.
He did say he was going to feature different artists throughout the season, and I've only seen one that he like vaguely mentioned, so I will do it even though I don't have as big of an audience. Mike Tucci Designs is the one who did my art, who does pointillism nail sculptures and canvases. So there's my unofficial plug, doing your dirty work, Leo. Anyway, Vince, Tyler, and Ashley.
The kids thing, if he did not tell her, is so bad. That is something that if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, you cannot hide that, right? That is not part of like the kind of like the blind things we hide, like, oh, I have a scar here that embarrassed. No, you have kids, you need to be upfront about that and let somebody know, because they're going to be their kids too.
And part of this, though, I think there's a whole other layer of complexity to this, though. Should he say something? Yes. And if he doesn't, they shouldn't be together. Like, I get that. But from my understanding, they might not be, like, they're his kids, but he's a donor.
There has been a significant amount of photo evidence, I'll say, that is not the case.
Okay.
If anybody follows Story Time with Ricky.
And it could be like a donor case, but I saw a whole bunch today, and it's like, it's enough to say that, again, if he does, like, you gotta say it, even if they're donor kids that are still part of your life because you're taking photo ops with them.
And we don't know that he didn't say anything to Ellie yet. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
And even if it's not shown, he could have said something.
That could have been a Jeramey situation, right? With the ex-fiance. Like, he could have said it in every single date, and for whatever reason, LIB chose not to show it, and kind of shame on them for not, because it's going to come out.
And look at what it's doing. It is getting so many people talking about it. I mean, it's insane. So whether or not he did or didn't, it's not really the show's job to determine whether, maybe they thought he would disclose it, because of course, if you have 3 children, you're going to talk about that. It's going to be a big thing. Look at how it worked out. Jess was the first one on the show who was a parent, and that turned out to be a whole, who knew how big her influencer career was going to take off. And then having her daughter kind of, I guess, participating and like getting a lot of opportunities that way. So not that was anybody's intention. I don't think that was Jess or Tyler's, but from what's coming out, we didn't see that on the show yet. We don't know how it played out.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Next we have Taylor and Garrett. And of course, I'm leading with the ladies first because I just think that's the polite thing to do. But my odds of them saying yes are 85%. They're a fan favorite this season. And I like their goofiness and their ability to kind of joke around, but also talk about serious topics. So, Jeramey, what are your thoughts on Tyler and Garrett? Taylor and Garrett.
If I have to hope that any of them are getting married, I hope it's them. Garrett, so right off the bat, I was a huge fan of Garrett without even seeing him on the show yet, with him being like an astrophysicist and stuff like that. Like, Or no, he either was an astro or quantum physicist. I can't remember which one it is, but he's a physicist either way. And I thought that was the coolest thing of all time. The only hiccup I think that they had, and I also think that Garrett was misunderstood for this, is he seemed like he came off kind of snippy when she wouldn't like disclose what her like ethnicity was. And I don't think that he meant to come off snippy about it. I think that
I don't either.
When he said that she was being calculated, I think he meant to say that, but not the way it was presented. Like, oh, you're being calculated. To me, that came across as you're being calculated in the sense of you're not telling anybody this because you really do want to keep it a secret, not because you don't want anybody to know, what ethnicity you actually are, so you feel like you have a better chance. Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But I do have a lot of high hope for them, and I think that I'll give it like a 90. Just for high hopes. High hopes.
Vince.
I think that there are Johnny and Amy. And okay. If anybody's Henry Cavill, if anyone's Superman, it's him. I thought he's just very.
I see that. Yeah.
Very genuine. I actually kind of like. He reminded me of Matt from Our Perspective being on the show. Like,
okay,
just good, clean cut, all American guy.
Maybe talks a little bit more.
Yeah, he talks a little bit more, but like kind of like the Matt they should have shown, right? Sorry, somebody has opinions.
Very big opinions.
Yeah, he agrees. So
he's like, Matt, give me milk.
I do think I agree with you, Jeramey. I feel like his hesitance that came across was more like nerves than anything else of like, oh my God, I don't know in general what this person looks like and if this is really going to work out. I don't think it was ill intended in any way. I think people really run with that saying like, oh, he was worried he only likes white women. I don't think that's.
He had simply come out and said, I have only ever been with white women. Okay.
Right.
That's not that it matters one way or another, but that's what he said. And then I think he was genuinely like, you're being calculated. And almost complimenting her for being calculated, not why are you being calculated? Like, people just love to take things and turn it into a negative aspect. And then the cool thing is, I don't know if you know this, but if you try to fight your opinion on the internet, it usually goes really well.
I like to make multiple troll accounts and just fight for fun.
Yeah.
And
you guys don't know my real personality.
And you're the one trolling me?
Shh. Troll Girl 99 is totally not me, and I don't know what you're talking about. And any meanness is not my split personality. That is just complete coincidence.
Good.
Okay. Getting that out there. Moving on. Marissa and Ramses. I think I gave them a 50-50 40-60. I gave them a 40-60 of saying yes, because, and a lot of fan speculation led me to this conclusion, but it seemed like he was more into her potentially than she was into him. But I love them together, and I really do hope they are another I do. And I've read that two couples say I do, so I think it might be Taylor and Garrett and Marissa and Ramses. So Vince, your turn to go first. What are the odds for them?
All the couples, they were like my least memorable, not in like a bad way or anything, but kind of for me just flew under the radar, Sure. So I could see like looking back, they're 50-50-ish, but yeah.
All right, Jeramey, your turn.
I'll give him less than that. I'll give him like 20%, just because like she doesn't like, even at the reveal, he seemed way more into her than she was into him. I think first impressions, you can kind of get a quick glimpse of how somebody's going to go. We've seen some very memorable first impressions of people, and usually if it's memorable, it doesn't end up very well. Let's put it that way.
That has to be so awkward, Jeramey. Is it weird to have all these cameras on you and you don't know what this person looks like, but you've told them you love them, and then is there pressure to make out, to really like be over dramatic about how you feel about that person, because I think that's my number one reason to like not go on a show like this, because I can't.
Yeah.
My face is very expressive. You're gonna know if I'm where I swing either way.
Yeah, no, it was so it was actually really interesting. So going into that, you think that they give you some advice. You get no advice that morning. No advice. And I think if I wasn't, I might have been the first reveal of that day because it was really early in the morning. Or if I wasn't the
Okay.
first, I was the second. And like I remember standing behind the doors with the, with the lights light up and they open the doors up. You stand there for like 15 minutes because they got to get all the different angles and all that different stuff. And nobody's talking to you the entire time. Like, and you're just standing there like, all right, cool. When are they finally going to open the door? And then next thing you know, you see somebody. The initial reveal isn't all that awkward. It's you get 15 minutes with each other. They tell you that you get 15 minutes after the reveal happens, and you get to meet each other. You can do whatever you want. So you can sit on the bench. You can go back to the lounge. Laura and I went back to her room, and we kind of just sat there and talked. And it does get really awkward because you're now face to face with this person that you've been talking to for 10 days, had no idea what they looked like. You've already said you loved each other. You're engaged to each other now. And you also know that you're on a 15-minute time crunch, so you can't get into a deep subject on anything. But you don't want to be super superficial, but then you've also got cameras around you. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Sounds terrible.
If you raise one eyebrow wrong, people are going to send you death threats.
So here's the, yeah. I'm not going to talk about that.
All right, we'll go on to the last couple, Alex and Tim. Now, I had high hopes for them initially, especially when they were in Mexico, and her and Alexandra were saying like they're definitely getting married to their fiancés, right? Like they are a yes from now. And then one, why weren't the cameras on them when whatever happened? And then two, Tim looks so checked out when they meet up after they spent the night separately. And no matter what she says, he's just like staring out in the distance. And we don't know the full story of what happened, but she put her hands on his mouth to cover his mouth. And it sounds like it was very alcohol fueled. But I said 20%. And I think that's even aiming pretty high because I don't even know if they're going to make it out of Mexico together. Vince?
Yeah, there was a level of coldness there that reminded me of I don't relate everything to our season. I'm sorry. They're really great people, Brittany and Ken are, but like this seems more toxic, but in season 7. But there seemed like a level of really just going cold and then going like kind of toxic. And
yeah,
when he left, I mean, I do think he'll come back and it'll be part of like one of those shocking moments, but they're not going to survive by any means.
Yeah. Jeramey?
We don't know what actually happened. And like with him like walking off and leaving and all that stuff, like when I supposedly walked off set, like after the whole bean dip thing had happened, and Laura and I kind of got into it a little bit. Like they said I walked off set. I never walked off set. I went to go to the bathroom and they just recorded me walking off set to go to the bathroom. And then that was like the big twist, like, oh, he left. I never left. And there's just so much that's always unknown with this stuff. Like it can be edited in such a way that like, I mean, if somebody put their hands on somebody else, like that's one thing. But like if somebody's walking off or somebody's doing other things, we don't know what actually happened. Honestly, I don't really remember a whole lot about either of them. So I'm not going to give it a really high rating because that's usually not a good sign. I don't think they stay together.
Now, they didn't show whatever happened. So were there moments either in the pods or when you guys obviously go on these vacations and you're in the apartments where the cameras are not on you? Because that seems like something they should definitely show. Jeramey?
I mean, yeah, that whole argument that happened between Laura and I was completely off camera. And the reason I came off, and I'm thinking of Tim right now, the reason I came off so cold during that argument between her and I, when I'm sitting in the chair, she's sitting on the couch, it's because the producers came in and were like, oh, you guys have already had this argument. You're going to have this argument again because it was off camera. So I'm sitting there like, I don't want to do this again, which gives her more time to get, poppy with certain things because she was even more pissed off at that point. And that could have been the 10 situation to where like he's coming off extremely cold because we're having to manufacture this argument that really did happen, and now you're making us rehash it again.
Vince, did you feel like there were tense moments for you in the pods where maybe, obviously the cameras are in the pods, but like maybe they should have shown for context, but you just didn't get it?
I mean, again, you didn't see a ton of me in the pods. I think there were some really, really in-depth conversations, and I thought I had, plenty of connections that could have been shown. But ultimately, I didn't end up with anyone, or at least I didn't propose to anyone, which means that, that's not part of the show at that point. I mean, I definitely had some tense moments in the pods where I was trying to really not let my face show what I was thinking, right? Where I had to kind of put my head down and do one of these and be like, but that's the extent for me.
And then I've kept you guys long enough. So we have 2 fan questions and then I'll let you go. So the first one's from Emma Jane 1515. I know the answer to this, but do you guys talk to other cast members? And I would think that you two being together would be proof, but we'll start with you, Vince.
I talk to most of the cast members and I'm very good friends with some, such as Jeramey, who might be my roommate one day. We're BFFs, so
he is pushing for this, man.
He really has, I think the level of, I'll say emotional attraction is deeper for Vince than it is for you, Jeramey. But do you still talk to other cast? Sorry, Vince. I'm sorry. I got to call it like I see it.
He's giving us a low rating here. Would 50-50? Come on now.
I'll go 60-40 in Jeramey's favor. All right, Jeramey, who do you talk to?
I don't talk to any of the women. When things with Sarah and I happened the way they did, they completely, iced her out of things, and I sided with her on that because that's who I was with. So I don't talk to any of the women. I talk to Vince most days. We're usually sending each other really, really terrible memes. That's kind of our love language. Some of the most awful things. So we do that. I saw Austin, not last weekend, the weekend before, see Austin quite a bit. Jamal every once in a while. Who else? Who am I missing? I mean, I'm cool with most of the guys. I just see Austin and Vince more than anybody.
Austin, who I don't know if we'll ever put out the interview, but he ate the entire interview that we did with him, just chilling, eating breakfast. And I did not know. I can get into a lot of awkward situations with guests, but I did not know what to do with that one because all you could hear was like the clinking of the fork. And
that's the most Austin thing that could have happened.
He's basically the prequel to The Big Lebowski.
That's what it felt like, honestly, now that you say that. And the audio wasn't great, and there were camera issues, and he was like, there was a point where you just saw from like his nose up and then his ceiling fan. So I don't know if that one's going to make it to air, but it was fun to do.
No, you should definitely do it because that is the most Austin interview you will ever have. But to give you context, that's who he is. So I went out with him 2 weekends ago, and we go to this bar that has it's got those punching machines in it. And of course, being all the guys are lined up at it let's see who can hit it the hardest. Sure. Austin does a lot of mixed martial arts and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to kick it. And I'm like, Austin, the floor's wet. Don't kick it. He's like, I'm going to kick it. Okay. So let's do this. He goes up to kick it, he slips, misses it, and it still goes up. I don't know how he managed to do it, but I'm even more impressed. He scored a 1 on that machine, which I didn't even know you could do, but then he goes to do it again, completely misses again, and he's like a train wreck, but in the most positive light.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things where he's very well put together. He's very well, very articulate. He's a smart guy, and he means very well with things. But you also don't he might show up at a bar with constellation style googly glasses on, and you're just like, what am I walking into right now?
I think the best example of Austin I can give is he actually was in the audience at the Matt Rife comedy special, the Netflix special. And he was very briefly on camera. It would just happen to be an audience reaction of him. But his friends that were the couple there were the most featured, and their little storyline in like the crowd work that Matt Rife did was the craziest situation. And then you just see Austin sitting next to them. And I was like, I think that's Austin. And if it is, that totally checks out. That tracks for my experience with him. And yeah, maybe I'll look for that footage if Jordan still has it. And then the last question I have for you guys is from my mom. We love Mama Ricks here on the show. How do you know when your 15 minutes is up? After Jeramey, you meet at the reveal, and do you guys get to talk to each other after that meeting before you go to your vacation?
I don't know if I understand that question. How do you know your 15 minutes is up? Got it.
Not your 15 minutes of fame, your 15 minutes
I was
of
like,
meeting.
what does that have to do with anything? Like,
No.
So the 15 minutes is up. It's just like it is in the pods. You have the producers will come out and be like, hey, you got 1 minute, and then you like know to kind of wrap it up. Because when we're in the pods, you get like a 30-minute notification, you get a 10-minute, and then a 1 minute, and then it's just audio off. But it's the same thing with the reveal. They give you a couple minutes heads up, and then when it's time to leave, they don't pry you away from each other, but it's like, hey, get out. It's time to go.
Sure.
So.
All right. Last thoughts, Vince, on this season. Any impending drama you think is going to come up before we head out for the night?
Ooh. There will be impending drama. There will be a reunion episode.
That is a fact.
Not a reunion, but like our barbecue episode, and there will be something that comes. I don't know what.
I cannot wait for that. Jeramey, last thoughts.
I've heard some rumors that some shit's gonna go down. I've heard some swirlings. So
can't be that bad. They're not gonna ride off on jet skis into the sunset or anything. You know?
I still maintain that I had the best exit from any reality show of all time.
Yes,
like, it was great. But I do think I don't know how valid it is, but I've heard it through the grapevine that some things may go down this season.
I mean, Colton jumped a fence on The Bachelor, so I don't know if you can top that one, but it's up there, maybe like top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this. I know I kept you far too long. Hopefully the future recaps will be shorter now that we've gotten all the comparisons out of the way. I love you guys. Please follow them on any social media if you don't already. But if you hear, you probably already do. And then you can follow the LovePod on all the major podcasting apps on YouTube and at LovePod Podcast on all the socials. Thank you guys. We love you, and we will see you next time.